So we're officially started. As I mentioned earlier, Dale is out of town, so I am chairing the meeting in his absence. So first I'd like to do a roll call. I see that Lynn is here. I see Mary Ann, I see Dave Howes, I see myself, I see Bud, I see Robert, and I see Randy. So we have a quorum.
Here comes one more.
And there's Vic, so we have extra people. Thank you very much, Vic. The next item on the agenda is a call for any oral communications from anyone, public or committee members about anything that is not on the agenda. Are there any comments requested? Hearing none. I'd like to move to review and approve the terrific minutes that we are seeing. And I do want to emphasize, I think they're terrific. But I would tell you, I learned something last night that the only thing required of our minutes are the action items. And if you look at the council minutes, it's like one line, one line, one line. Anything else is as desirable as the committee wants. So I just want you not to feel like you have to dig in and get every, oh, I think they're fantastic. Yeah. But I'm sure you put a lot of time into it.
It helps me remember who said they'd do what.
So with that in mind,
So move. Second.
all in favor? Aye, opposed? None. Okay, minutes are approved. So we'll go on to town reports and see if we have an update on the backup town internet from Corey Stocker. I don't see Howard is going to give that report.
Can you hear me? Okay. So thank you. I have some other minor items too, but the backup is still, Corey's still looking to a backup service. So we don't have a definite answer yet, but it's something that's being worked on. And, at this point, because of the staff shortage, she's also doing some some town clerk items too. So we're just falling a little behind on some items, but she is working on this item. So that's pretty much the update right now. There's not much of an update, but it's something that we're currently working on and looking at backup providers.
Do you have a sense of what the timeline might be to accomplish all that? Just a wild guess or?
No, I'll have to check in with Corey and maybe I'll get back to the chair.
Sure, great. So you're up again, Howard, on the AM radio relocation to the town center.
Okay. Hello. So on this item also, it's on the AM radio location. As I understand it now, there was a high power antenna, but the proposal now is just to bring back the equipment to the town center. One thing we need to do is just as a check-in with the staff is to let them know that this is coming back. And in talking with Ray, there was some questions concerning the antenna at some time, some questions raised by staff, and we want to take the time to address those items. And I was going to work with Ray to determine some information, to determine some backup background information concerning the radio equipment, concerning those items that staff was concerned about. So we're working on that. But the intent is to bring the equipment back to the town hall. And as I understand, to utilize the existing antenna that's already there already.
The existing antenna has a much more limited availability throughout the town. That's why I think the high gain antenna that is on Ray's property needs to be moved down here to get better coverage of the town. And I certainly agree with you that we should have the factual information, be able to give the staff about what risks there are or aren't, and presumably there aren't, but they deserve to have more specific information before that happens. But I'm concerned if the radio is moved down here using the current antenna, that the coverage of the town will be quite different than it is now. Is that fair to say? So maybe we need to figure out how to get that information to you and the staff to make a decision, and then figure out how to get the high gain antenna from Ray's down here.
You're, get the mic up higher. You need to use this.
I think that they're both out of batteries.
Use one of these mics here then.
There it goes. Hello.
Yeah.
Will, in addition to that, to look at different sites or a different site here at the town center if there's concerns,
Sure.
but to open the door to that and explore those things.
Sure.
So, and it could be with me or someone on the EPC staff too, to look at that.
Okay, thanks, Howard.
I have a question. When you're saying staff concerns, what do you mean?
By just having the high gain antenna there, I think we just need to provide some education.
Exposure to the radio waves
Oh,
and
that's
the danger or lack thereof.
Is that dangerous?
It's roughly 12 watts. Walkie-talkies that you're holding right up against the side of your head typically have 5 watts and can go up higher.
And that's great information to have. I think we put it into perspective of comparisons of
Right.
Wi-Fi, your cell phone, a walkie-talkie, just information right now.
And when you say a high gain antenna, that is not increasing the output of the transmitter. It's just a more efficient antenna to put out the 12 watts. Okay.
Yeah, a little fact sheet for the staff that would help them get the clarity around the safety of it. Sure. So we'll still hope that that can be done by July 1st, and we'll talk further about that. Why don't you move on to your next item, Howard, since you're the big guy.
Use your mic, use your mic.
Would you also want a meeting with the staff to address the concerns, an actual meeting? Not just a fact sheet?
I think we'll see how that goes.
So status on backup power for wireless base stations, Howard.
Yeah, okay. So on this item, you know, there has been some turnover on staff. I know we were requested to look into, this is as I understand it from Dale, the information I got from Dale was that the state requires a generator after an outage. And that is something that the state requires the carriers, as I understand, to do. You know, it's not a requirement of the town, so we don't enforce it. We, you know, at some point, I'd like to find out more information because number one, I checked with the planning.
Howard, we're losing you. Can't hear you.
Okay, this is gonna be much better. So a lot of the times when cell carriers permit, it's typically a subcontractor or a sub of a sub that comes in and pulls the permit and then builds it for that cell company. So we don't have, even if we pulled all the permit information, typically it's some kind of subcontractor. So basically it takes time. It's gonna take time right now to, and I think it's a good exercise to find out who the contact information is and then also provide it to the EPC so that you guys have it also, because in an emergency, if the staff's not around, it's best for you to have that information. Some of the cell sites probably have a big sticker. I used to work first. I've installed cell sites too in my previous career, but typically they have a sticker and it has a contact information right on the cell site. Unfortunately, some of these cell sites we can't get to because they're on private property. So it's going to take some time. I don't know when we have time to do that. Once again, we're short on staff right now. We're in the, we had a turnover of the town manager. We have a new assistant town manager, and we're down to town clerk, and we're working on some big ticket items right now. No excuse, but it takes time to get this information. And so I think we just need time to basically dig and find out who the contact folks are, what are the numbers, and then provide that also to the EPC so you have them too permanently. So once we get time to research and get this, and then call them, then we can have that information. And once again, but from what I've seen so far during outages, I have seen them bring out some types of generators, because we also get complaints too, because they're loud.
Right.
So
I think the way I understand it is that from the EPC's point of view, it's considered a risk factor for the town if the battery backups aren't there in an emergency. So, we just want to make sure that it gets done. I mean, this group isn't going around looking at cell towers and contacting carriers. So I just have to assume that somehow the town will make a determination about how best to have confirmed that the carriers are living up to their responsibility in protecting the town.
understood. And I think it's also important probably to find out which state agency implemented the law and how they're double checking, because that's their job too. So I think there's some information gathering that
Right.
will help make this easier going forward.
So we know this is on your agenda to be determined.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you, Howard.
I do want to add a
Sure.
couple things. As I think that, being new to the EPC committee coming in, I just, couple of things. I attended a neighborhood watch committee block captain meeting last week that Lori Duvall put together, and then there was a good showing, 15 to 20 people. As it relates to the sheriff's contract, we are in the midst of a negotiation, renewing the contract or some type of negotiation. So as you probably may or may not know, there is a bigger price tag this coming year in the magnitude of about $800,000. And that's been talked about at the council meetings. It's been talked at the last two council meetings, I think. So how I want to frame this to let people know is that if you do hear about it, we had a first study session, and then out of that first study session, we determined to do a 3-month extension with them to determine what our course of action is. The next study session is going to be at the next council meeting on June 14th. But tentatively right now, we invited the sheriff's Captain Mark Myers to come in the day before June 13th to do a Q&A at the town center here for citizens that are interested in information on why there's a cost increase and what the services are. So Once that information comes out, I encourage you to attend. And if you want to have more information on to attend the study sessions also. So that's one item I want to update. The third item I want to update on you on is we're going into fire season, and the town has started mowing early this year. We started mowing the sides of our roads. You probably saw that pretty early. We're also starting mowing our trails this year, and we're going to be starting mowing our open spaces. So how everyone can help us is to start mowing their front of their property also. It was a heavy rain year, and there's a lot of thistle out there. So it would help us if people start mowing the front of their homes early too. So thank you very much.
A question. You said the sheriff's increase is large. What percent is that? What percent increase?
It's the typical contract is 1.5 million, and they're asking for an $800,000 increase.
50%.
It's quite a percentage. And once again, this is as a result, as I understand, that they did a cost analysis. They did a cost analysis of their services, and they're looking for a recoup of the services that they provide.
Okay, I think we're gonna,
Quick question. So in terms of the expectations of the sheriff's department, is there in its process a clarity of what is expected of service, not just the money? Because the response time historically has been very problematic. The recent robbery, the response time was pathetic. And I'm just wondering, has this been addressed any further in the conversation? Has this been exclusively a financial discussion?
Service levels, that was actually broached on at the last, I can't recall the date, the very first study session. Response times were talked about, and you're welcome also to attend the next meeting and bring that up also. But that topic was brought up, and I think at that time Captain Myers did respond.
All right, okay. So that discussion, as far as you know, is over at this point?
No,
it's in process, there's another meeting coming, yeah.
Can't you get to a mic here? Go ahead, Robert.
So Craig is saying that Vic should write his questions and present that to the council to make sure that that question gets addressed, which I agree to. Okay.
It's been raised before, but
Yeah.
I will. Got it. Got it. Sure, Craig. Thank you. No, I understand that. Fair enough.
Okay, we're
So-
getting stuck here a little bit. Let's go on to, you're done, Howard. Do you have any more?
no, that's it. I think on the we're busy going to be mowing. We're trying to mow early. Our fire mitigation crews are still working on Golden Oaks. And that's been going very well too, in cooperation with the Woodside Fire Department, fire prevention. So, and we're also looking at removing some more eucalyptus on Cervantes. So all those things do take time. So thank you very much.
Yeah, I would say, Howard, that everyone on the committee, I'm sure, appreciates what you and the staff are doing, given the staffing levels and trying to keep all of us going in terms of town and safety. So thank you very much for all you're doing.
So thank you for acknowledging that. It's a different time right now.
Yeah.
And
We'll
we're
get through
looking
it.
at different circumstances, and just looking positive, and hopefully in X number of months, we're in a better place. Thank you very much.
Let the staff know that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next is Craig, who's going to talk about the AM radio signs update. Do you have one? No. Okay, so we'll put that off. Next, we have the Woodside Fire Protection District report. I'm not sure who is going to give that this morning. Tom, are you up for that?
Yes, sir. Good morning, everybody. Tom Sherry, Woodside Firehouse. How's everybody doing today? Yeah, for district happenings for this month, I'd like to just touch on, first of all, Chief Leonard couldn't be here today. He's out of the office. That's why I'm here. As far as fire season, just kind of like Howard just touched on, reports from CAL FIRE early last month indicated that Northern California's peak wildland fire season will start a little bit later due to the wet winter we had, but they're still projecting, from August, September, October to be the peak fire season, based on what we have for weather. But going backwards a little bit, last Friday we did have a wildland fire in San Mateo County, 280, just northbound 280, just north of Edgewood, resulted in 2 to 3 acres on a day kind of like today, 64 degrees out, a little bit of wind pushing towards it. I responded from my house. I was actually off that day and watching the fire behavior. It's pushing through light grass and some brush. Went to about third alarm. Used the first 2 alarms. Had a third alarm in staging just for structural protection if needed. But got access to the fire very quick and put it out very quickly. That's it for the fire part. As far as training, we've been doing a lot of training recently. We had our South Zone training group come in, and for Woodside Fire, Menlo Park, Redwood City, we did a joint training scenario up in Hutter Park that lasted about 6 days for us, touched on all aspects of wildland fire training, from fire attack, communications, shelter deployments, and helicopter use. We brought in CAL FIRE, CHP, and did some helicopter operations. As far as our station remodels are going very well. Station 8 is moving along. We just had both bathrooms completed. Our apparatus bay is almost done. Crews are still living in it. This week they started the kitchen remodel, so that's been happening. Anticipated completion is sometime in August for Station 8. And Station 7's brand new fire station. That's moving along quite nicely. They're supposed to have the framing actually done later on next week, and should be weather tight with an anticipation of being done in November. As far as changes in the organization, Chief Leonard will be retiring as of June 22nd, and I'll be taking over his position. We have a new firefighter recruitment happening. That's we're probably going to hire 1 to 2. We have interviews taking place next week. And we just announced a fire battalion chief test that came out today, and we'll be interviewing for that in a couple of weeks. Or actually, not until September, sorry. That's all I have for Woodside Fire.
Great.
Selena?
Selena, do you have some additional information for us?
Yes, I do. Good morning. Last night, WPB Ready hosted a chainsaw safety training for the residents. It was taught by a Kings Mountain volunteer firefighter. He had been a firefighter for 20 years, and he came in and brought in several chainsaws. And the class was heavy on the safety, which is great. But Marianne was there. She can speak to how well the class went. I do think one of the biggest takeaways was the tip of turning off or engaging the chain lock or chain brake without having to lift your hand off the chainsaw. So just using your wrist. It just like blew most of the students' mind. So it was a great class to have, and really eye-opening for me because I actually don't know much about chainsaws. As well, for the WPB Ready single page handouts, we have a bunch of single page handouts that are front and back. And they were created, I would say probably now 2 years ago, where those are all getting edited and looked at by marketing professional. So that's her skill set. She's in Woodside. And at that point, we're going to kind of redo them and then push them out. I am hoping to meet with maybe Marianne and Randy to share some of the resources for their outreach. As well, just a heads up, the CERT meetings have now been changed to the first Thursday of the month. So we'll have a meeting today at 5 p.m. You can be in office at 808 at my office across the street, or we still have it via Zoom. So just know that we changed those meeting dates and times to work with people's schedules a little bit better. We also have a work day coming up here on Saturday. One of the biggest things I'm kind of excited about is getting the website revamped. We've had a couple of volunteers, CERT volunteers working on the CERT website, a new CERT website that will hopefully be transitioned from the old one. That'll be a little bit more user-friendly for all of our CERT members and the residents to access. Let's see, SMC alert. So I just want to give a heads up that several of us met with during one of the evacuation meetings to discuss, or with the Department of Emergency Management, about SMC alert, what the capabilities of it are, you know, some of the issues we've been having, duplicate accounts, and it was clarified to us that right now DEM has removed the opt-in features for SMC alert because they were not functioning as they had hoped. They are still looking to create lists within the program so that people can opt into these lists, and then, but then at that point, it becomes the sender's responsibility to send the correct messages send the messages to the correct lists. One of the issues I think DEM is having is training all of the agencies up to a certain standard, so that they can use the program how it should be used. And because there's a lot of people that have profiles on there, so I made the recommendation that they can come train me how to use it and to send out alerts properly, so that I can train my people. So kind of train the trainer. So we're looking forward to that. And as well, we're hoping to do another test of the system. I'll be pushing out promotion and kind of an update about the program on the PV forum here in about a week or two. And then we're hoping to do the test the day after the Communications Day. So June 25th. We didn't want to do it on Communications Day because we felt it would take away from that actual event. It would also take me away from that event. So we figured we could help promote it. We could even promote it more on that day, answer questions regarding SMC alert on that day, and then the next day have a scheduled test of the system for Portola Valley. Also, one other thing I did want to mention is yesterday, Marshall and Don Bullard, myself, met with Roberta and Portola Valley School District and how we could better engage parents in the school district to know what the evacuation plan is, how to access the information. So we came up with several ideas we're hoping to implement here after, for the next school year for fire season. So hopefully, we'll be able to engage, we'll get more parents involved and just be aware how to get that info. And I think that's all I have now.
Great. Thank you, Selena. I should ask, is there any public comment on any of the Woodside Fire comments?
This is
Hearing none.
Roberta. Hello.
Yes,
Hi.
Roberta.
Hi, everyone. Hi, thank you. And I just really want to thank Woodside Fire and especially Don and Marshall and Selena for coming yesterday and talking with us. We really appreciate the support and are really happy to be in partnership and provide this information to the community and keep everyone safe. So thank you.
Thank you, Roberta.
One quick question, if I might, Jerry. So Selena, in recent weeks, some new residents have not been informed about the good work that you're doing and a lot of the materials that you have. I assume there's no way that when there's a new resident to get them engaged in what's going on. To get them engaged when they come new to the community on WPV materials and work and so forth, but you rely essentially, I guess, on the neighborhoods to do that. Is that correct?
That is correct. And I have thought about this in the past and thinking of, how can we provide this information at the town so that when they go to the town to kind of orient themselves and, get information about their community, that WPV Ready and CERT are right there in the forefront, whether it's a flyer that has a QR code or something, just a way for us to get those people, rope them in right when they get in the community. So any suggestions you have, I would be open to.
I would just comment, that's a great idea and a great junction point to do it. So if there's some way a new resident coming in with whatever they need to do with the town in ownership can be informed of the terrific work that you're doing. I think that would really be helpful with respect to new residents coming in and wanting to do the right thing. Thank you.
Great.
We could work with the realtors.
And
Yeah.
the realtors.
Yeah.
That's also another great nexus point, Selena, of the realtors in town.
Yes, thank you.
So, Selena, thank you for the class yesterday evening. It was really good. I thought it was particularly effective on safety. For example, I am not going to buy a bigger chainsaw just because of yesterday's class. So thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Great. So we're close to on schedule. I'd like to move on to the draft evacuation plan review. I'll ask, is there any public comment before Rob Young walks us through this? Hearing none. Rob, you have an update or?
Yeah, we have finished the initial draft, working very closely with Woodside Fire. And we would like to present it to the community and to the EPC on the evening of June 13th between 5 and 6. We will be, if that is approved by the EPC, we will be putting on the town website that initial draft so that the entire community can read it ahead of time and the EPC can read it ahead of time. It's been a very, very hard piece of work to get through. Really appreciate everything that the Woodside Fire has done to really drive this forward. So yeah, I don't know if there'd be any public comment right now. If there isn't, what I'd like to do is ask the EPC. We've already checked to make sure that June 13th between 5 and 6 is an okay time with the town to do this. We've reserved that time. So I guess it would be open for public comment now.
Yes, is there any public, let's ask the committee members, is there any comment, questions of Rob? I would start by just saying we will make a motion today to approve or whatever for that meeting. I guess there's no problem with the town and the committee getting the information at the same time, although sometimes it's kind of nice for the committee to see it first if they're going to discuss it, and if it takes them a little more time. So whenever it's done, it might be worth trying to figure out how to, I guess, legally do that in the Brown Act.
So legally, I think they have to go out simultaneously. Don't they?
Yeah, okay, so it'd be part of the agenda that goes out, and we'll just make sure it's early enough, because I'm sure it's got a lot of detail in it.
Our goal in it is to have it out 4 days from now.
Great, that would be plenty of time.
The 5th, I thought we were targeting the 7th. So a week ahead of time, 6 or 7.
6 or 7, okay, correction. Any questions of Rob?
Will that be on Zoom or what?
It'll be live here and it'll be on Zoom. Though.
Hybrid.
It'll be hybrid.
Craig has a comment?
Thank you. So this sounds great. I would recommend that we get the wildfire preparedness and the geology committee to review this as well, because they're both going to have sort of unique perspectives. And then my question is, I mean, for this draft plan, are you looking for people to help flesh out the draft? I mean, what's your goal? Because I mean, this committee doesn't have the authority to come up with an evacuation plan. At the end of the day, it has to be approved by the council.
Correct.
So I'm just trying to understand the process that we're going to go through to make sure that we set people's expectations coming to the meeting, and then that we follow through to make sure that, we get this thing done, which is, we all agree is the thing we want to do.
I think it's going to be similar to the traffic study, where we are looking for both the EPC's inputs, the other committee's inputs, and the town residents And then we tried to finalize that, roll it into a plan and submit it to the town council.
Yeah, great. So I think the only thing you might want to think about is, do you want to get input from the committees before you get input from the public? And I'm not sure that the order matters, but it's something to think about.
That's not how we did the
Traffic study?
traffic study.
Okay, yeah. So I don't remember what we did on that. So
In fact, the residents were incredibly helpful.
Sure.
in Pointing out a lot of really good points to be included in that.
yeah, no, I definitely think we want public input. I wasn't suggesting that. It's just, I just want to make sure we also use our committee structure as well.
But the other thing I think to recognize is that this is, when approved, this is just the first version of it.
Right.
As time goes along, we really want to make sure that this is updated once a year, represented to the town council once a year for the new information and new issues that have come up. And so the goal here is this will not be the final evacuation plan. This is the initial evacuation plan. And we really want to try to get this done before fire season this year. Woodside Fire has worked really, really hard on getting all of this. And in the presentation on June 13th, we'll give a quick review of what's in it. And then Don Bullard and Woodside Fire will also be speaking.
Yeah, no, I think this all sounds great. I'm just suggesting that there is a process and getting committee input as well. Because I think if you bring this to the council without getting
Oh, no.
the committee input, then what's going to happen is the council will ask you to go get their input and will take longer. So that, I think that was all it's suggesting is, and I think WPC and the geology are the two committees I would recommend that you talk to.
Okay.
So if you just get it on their schedule, and then I think getting public input sounds great as well. And that way you should be able to put all that stuff together.
By their schedule, could we simply have them participate on June 13th?
What I would ask is, why don't you talk to the chairs and find out what the chairs would find acceptable? I mean, I don't think it's up to me to decide that.
Greg,
But-
I got a process clarification.
Yeah.
Per the Brown Act, can we share a draft document as a subcommittee to an entire other committee? It's my
Sure.
understanding that we can.
Yeah, which, I mean, so
We could share it, but what about receiving feedback or discussion?
exactly, they have to have a publicly noticed meeting for them to discuss it.
Sure.
Yeah.
I
So-
think,
And for us to
actually,
receive
So,
feedback.
so wait, but let's not, I was gonna say, let me answer and then you can answer. So, I mean, that's why I was suggesting talk to the chair and say, this is what we have and we would like to get your feedback. I think the chair would have the option, they could create a subcommittee. That would be their way, and then they could just chat with you just openly. Or you guys can just present to them, they can just give you feedback and you would give them the draft, it would be published in their agenda. So that would be the public way of going about it.
actually, I think I have a process problem here. I don't think it makes sense that something goes to another committee if we as the committee don't have something we all saw. Doesn't make any sense.
Well, yeah, no, I think that I was saying, I mean, EPC is part of, I mean, I thought that was already part of the discussion that you guys were going to review this thing. So,
And I think, why don't we invite them for the Tuesday meeting and then they come to the Tuesday meeting? That would make perfect sense.
Yeah, they'll get it 7 days in advance. I think this is going to be more than a 1-hour meeting. We might as well own up to that ahead of time, but so that when you're done, you've got all the input you need to sort of put it all together on.
I guess the only thing I want to be careful is I would think, and I'm one council member, I'm your liaison, so I want to be careful that I walk a line here. That the council would probably like to see input from those two committees in addition to yours, but we're assuming that it's coming from you, so we're going to get yours. I don't think it has to be before this meeting, but I think it probably would want to be before it came to the council that, you would incorporate their stuff. So I don't want to slow it down. I appreciate that you're trying to move it forward, Robin. I think you've done a great job. I just also want to make sure that we don't say, oh, we're going to throw the process away because we're in a hurry. Like that ultimately will bite us, I think.
Well, I think we're all in agreement. First of all, this committee has to sort of agree on a draft that they like and want other people to opine on. That it then allows the other committees to review what we think is the right evacuation plan. And then how that gets incorporated and presented to the council is just the next step.
Right. And so that's why I was asking initially about the process. So it sounds like getting public input comes back to this committee, it gets incorporated. You guys say, we got a lot of stuff, but I would also get, input from the other committees earlier than later, because that way you guys can do the final. I mean, we would expect the final recommendation to come from this committee.
Right. I
So-
think Mary Ann's point though, Craig, is simply that for Rob to give them a draft before we agree that that's the draft we want them to review is kind of the cart before the horse. So
Well, but the problem is.
You're going to give it to the public.
Yeah, we share it with the public in order for the EPC to review. So we might as well, when we send it out a week ahead of time
Everybody.
and notice all the EPC members,
Sure.
we can notice the other key committees and solicit their feedback. And if it's appropriate, it could be posted as an update from Carrie Chin.
Yeah.
from
Greg's
the
just
town, and
saying
then-
they
then
won't
that's
have a
what the public
chance to
feedback.
probably meet as a committee to discuss it between the time it goes out 7 days before our meeting. So we're going to get their committee input after our June 13th meeting, sometime after. That logical?
Anyway, I'm not trying to take up a lot of time. I just want to make sure that we follow a
Right.
process, that we gather all this stuff up. So I appreciate both. We're trying to move it along and we need to make sure we slot everything in.
Yeah.
Which is, town government is slower than we'd all like. So thank you.
Okay. So we need a motion now to approve a special meeting on June 13th at 5 PM. Rob, how long do you want the meeting to last to make sense?
Well, the town has asked that it lasts no longer than an hour that evening. They said up to an hour and a half. So why don't we say an hour and a half and let's see what happens. I think that what people need to understand is that this is the initial evacuation plan. It's what would happen today if there was an evacuation for an emergency that had to happen. The important thing is for town residents to become educated on what's going to happen. And it definitely is not the final plan. It needs to be improved. More things need to be added. But I think that what we're all worried about is that we don't want to delay people understanding what will happen now.
Yeah.
And we
I'm
need-
just concerned that because this is a important and an item that has a lot of interest in the town, you're probably going to have a lot of public comment potentially.
Yeah.
And so I don't want to cut people off at 6 o'clock and just say the meeting's over, sorry. So we should just panel a little longer and maybe it goes beyond even if necessary.
Okay, I will check in and see if it can be longer than that, but could we at least approve now so that we set June
Yeah,
13th?
so you want to make that motion, Rob?
I'd like to move that we have a special meeting on June 13th at 5 PM. Right now, reserved just for an hour. We'll see if we can extend that to have an initial comments about what the purpose of this evacuation plan is, plus some comments. I'll make comments. Don Bullard will be here. He'll make comments. Then I'd especially like to have initial input from the EPC about what else we need to do for this fire season, and then what we want to do long-term for improving the evacuation plan as time goes on.
That's a long motion. Very well done, Rob. Can you repeat that for the secretary? No, I'm kidding.
I have to apologize. I didn't know I was making a motion. Can I move that we have a special meeting to discuss the evacuation plan on June 13th at 5 o'clock?
Excellent. Second,
Second.
any discussion? Craig?
Sorry, this is a little bit out of order, but there's a race in equity at 6:30. I think that's what you're bound by. So if you think you want longer, you might think about a different day. If you just want to keep it, then you're going to be bound by that hour and a half.
We'll be bound by the hour and a half.
Thank you.
Sure.
Sorry.
Thank you. So hearing no discussion, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? None. Motion carries. Thank you very much, Rob. Next item is the incredible zone identification awareness project that began in November of the previous year. I'm happy to report I have the check for the printer. All of the tags are printed. The printer has all the materials and is preparing a sample for me so that I can see it. So I'm hoping that within a week, I will actually have all the material. The only thing we need to do is then stuff the envelopes. There'll be roughly 1,600 envelopes that will need 2 tags put in them specific to their zone. I'll take a stab, but I think 1,600 may be a bit more than I'm going to be able to do in a reasonable period of time. So I may call on the committee to see if you can stop by my house and either pick up a few hundred or sit at my dining room table and do some stuffing so we can get these out.
So when do you think that might be ready? I'm just trying to think of timing.
I will talk to the printer today and I'll get a sort of a final on that, but I'm hoping since he has the material, it's just a matter of printing and stuffing that
So it's a matter of days.
within a
hopefully.
matter of a week or 10 days, we could close to getting this
on the 13th while he's talking.
That's an option I'll consider. Thank you very much. Okay, moving on. Planning for Communications Day. I think everyone here is well aware of that. Have been doing this for quite a while. I think the important thing is to have as much representation from our committee as possible. Can people tell me who thinks they're going to be there on the 24th? So Rob is going to be there. Okay.
What time is that meeting?
The 24th of June,
Right.
it's a Saturday.
He said what time?
Oh, I think it's, we set up around 9 and it lasts until 2 or 3 and we take down something around then. I'll come. Well, thanks, bud.
And if you need more, I can rearrange my schedule, but it sounds to me you're going to have an adequate. showing
Yeah,
of the
there's a
EPC.
fair number of other people that do comms that will also be helping
Okay.
to do that. If anyone has any other ideas about making that a positive day for communications with the town, certainly speak now or get in touch with me or Dale later if you have any ideas of other ways to communicate.
I just wanted to know, where are the banners?
Uh,
Pass them.
I believe Dale knows how to get them. I'm not going to say he has them, but I think he knows how to get them. And I think Ray has some. But in terms of an EPC banner, I think Dale would be the source, and I don't know.
Because
where-
generally, I have never done banners, but I know the process. And usually banners go up with approval by the town about 30 days before the event, down at Ford
Right.
Field. And if we don't have a banner, I think the train has left the station for a new banner. But I assume this event is not the first event. So I was always assuming that somebody is sitting on the
Yeah.
banner and we just need to change the date. And we can do that.
Right. I think the best way to answer that is I need to contact Dale and see where he is with that because he's going to be managing that. I'm just trying to help him out for this meeting. Okay, any other comments, public or otherwise, on this item? Huh? Pardon? No. We start setting up around 9. I think it officially opens at 10. I don't have my sheet with me to confirm. And there's usually, a fair amount of attendance and traffic around. So this is an opportunity for education in many ways. I know that Woodside Fire will be there. We'll have, I think, some potentially information available for people. So
Yeah, I think, we need to get something out on the forum, which is not difficult, and have something by Kari. It would be the same content because not everybody reads the forum.
how do you want to organize that or be a part of that process?
I don't know. I mean, whatever is needed, you tell me.
So let me ask Dale again that, see how to put your team together and see what needs to be done. Okay. Okay, moving on to,
Question.
yes, I'm sorry,
in-
Bud.
In the report, in our handout, it says the day is on 25th. Communication day is June 25th of town. Or it's a
I
tip.
don't, I can look it up. If
No, it's
somebody has a
24th,
calendar, it's the,
24th.
This.
It's definitely on the 24th.
Why, this has been incorrect then.
What are
That-
you looking at? What is that?
This is what the handout was.
Raise.
Raise handout. And it says that they start 11 a.m. Go on air at 11 a.m.
Well, we have something from Dale, and it looks pretty official, and it says annual communications and safety day, Saturday, June 24th, from 10 to 2.
I don't disagree. This is just a handout we
Okay.
got for this meeting.
Yeah. Thanks, Bud. Appreciate that. You're incredible at picking up these details.
Well, only because people ask when it starts. And
Oh, no, I. not
these are going on
criticizing.
online on the air nationally. That's the
Right.
ham stuff.
Okay, in your packet, based on the last meeting, we asked people what they thought our goals should be for this year. Of course, we're now halfway through the year. So it's a question of what is realistic for us to get done. I tried to organize the comments that I received by email from everyone. So rather than walking us through this and taking too much time, I assume that everyone has read it. Do you see if that your comments are in here, the goals that you are interested are articulated correctly? You know, one of the things I added at the end was to try and really come up with some kind of, I think, written document. What is the EPC's role if an emergency were to happen? I mean, we don't go out and set up a first aid station. We don't do, so there are certain things that we can do, and they're usually related to helping set up the EOC in the absence of town members, having access and being able to set up communication. But I think there should be a more specific document about what the EPC expects is their responsibility in the event of an emergency, rather than saying all we do is help plan and then it's up to somebody else when the earthquake hits.
Well, the one thing historically is that EPC committee members who were sort of trained were becoming backup for staff if staff was really tired in certain jobs. I know that historically, I mean, yeah, we have been historically, and we have been
That
at
predates me, but.
yeah.
understand.
So that was something that was considered by previous town managers very helpful. But obviously, if we do that, we need to know what it is we're doing so that we can fill in. But that question will come up. Staff will get tired, and then who is taking the next 4-hour shift for what?
Yeah.
So that's something you can think about, where we can pitch in.
There was a point in time when we were supposed to come here and set up the EPC before staff got here.
The EOC,
EOC, because they don't live in town.
right.
And if bridges are down or roads are disrupted, they may not get here soon either. So
But
maybe
now we
that's
have
changed.
this software, which I don't know if it's actually operational for the EOC to be open from anywhere, assuming we have adequate Wi-Fi and so on. So I think we need an update from the town as to how the EOC will be set up in the absence of town being on the premises and what it does or doesn't expect from us if it doesn't get set up that way.
And I think there's probably training needed. Just looking at last winter when Woodside was obviously trained and they opened whatever they opened and we did not open anything. So that is an indication that maybe training needs to happen so that things happen in an emergency.
So I think it's two-part. One is what would be helpful to them? What's the need? And the second absolutely is, I can speak for myself, I'm sure others may share this. We need to be trained as to specifically how we do this in the most effective way. I think that would really be worthwhile to answer your question, Jerry, which is that, what's our role?
Right. There is a lockbox with a key to get in so that you could get to the
Right.
radios, but then, the next thing is, what do I do next? And I think it's been, at least prior to my being on the committee, there's been no training or discussion about that.
Jerry?
The evacuation plan, I just
Wait.
sort
Jerry?
sorry, Randy.
Related to this item, this came up in the last meeting, the one before, Ray brought up kind of legal liability and what our roles. I heard the term kind of role and responsibility both just being talked about. And I think, one possible way to approach this would be that the EPC and members as officially a part of the EPC wouldn't have any role or responsibility, but individuals from our committee or from other committees could volunteer for a best effort basis, and we could have a legal document that exonerates them of liability. And then there could also be requirements for training for various roles if people want to volunteer on a best effort emergency help basis. But I don't understand how this dovetails and connects to CERT and other things. So I would say that this could be something that we could work on clarifying as part of the evacuation.
Yeah, that's why I put it on, Randy.
emergency.
All your points are well taken, and I don't know what the solution is yet, but I think it's having a goal to get it resolved and sooner rather than later. Craig, comment?
Yeah, so I was just going to second what Randy is saying. So DSW is the legal protection. And you're right, it goes to individuals, but we used to have everybody on EPC signed up with DSW. So you just have to do a swearing and sign some stuff, but we definitely should do that. But to your point, if it would really help the council if you guys could clarify the VEOC, which is this virtual EOC, and the role of EPC relative to the role of staff, and then all of this relative to CERT and their command posts and what they're opening. Because I think I have a vague idea of how it is, but it would be nice if we formalized it so that all the parties agreed on their roles. And if you guys could spearhead that, that would be awesome.
Excellent, great. So I'll talk with Dale about how he wants to move this forward, but I think that's an important goal. I also want to just talk briefly about the neighborhood organization for emergencies that Vic has worked on. I was on the subcommittee with him to try and get that done. I don't think we're moving the needle enough. And the question is, what can the council do, or what other ways can we help make this happen? And I just think that the council needs to take this on as either an important item that they're going to support and back and come up with a strategy, or we present a strategy how they can support us to get this done. Otherwise, it's just going to dwindle and be not as proactive as I would like, or I think it should be.
I'll let you speak first, Craig, and then I'll comment.
So in terms of the council, I mean, if you guys can work on some kind of recommendation, I think that would be great. I'm your liaison. I would be very supportive. We used to have this thing we called Fifth Wednesday. And we used to basically have a council meeting that was just safety related. And I'd be happy to bring that back to the council and see if they would be willing to do that. But if that's the case, it would put burden on you guys because you'd have to bring prepared material so that the council could discuss it. Because I mean, the council's not going to out of thin air come up with a solution for this problem. But if you guys have some, ideas and presentation, and then you need the council to support it, I'm pretty sure we would do that. So, so that I think that would be a way that we could sort of move this forward. And if you guys like the idea of the 5th Wednesday, again, it would put some burden on you because you guys would have to do preparation. But if you're supportive of it, let me know, and then I can try to bring it back to the full council and see if they're supportive of doing it again. Because I mean, it's been years now since we did it, but the nice thing was, I think that happens about 4 times a year that we have a 5th Wednesday. And the nice thing was it gave us a focus on safety.
So
Vic, why don't you-
just from an experiential point of view, I got to tell you, my frustration in trying to do a refreshed effort over the last year or so, unfortunately, is the same in prior years. The key to these programs is getting a single person or two in their community that's going to take the responsibility of making it happen. I mean, that's what's worked for us in Golden Hills. I think it's happening in Westridge. It certainly is been true up in the ranch, and I think in Ladera. And that is the biggest challenge. And I must say, I've come to all the fairs and I've been available to answer questions, and I followed up with people who expressed an interest. But it comes down to getting somebody or two people, but usually just one, that really takes responsibility and then helps get the volunteers that are out there potentially to do it. And that's the great frustration. And I have no more answers. I'm just doing it on an anecdotal basis now. I'm not familiar with what was done in the past, and I'm happy to contribute whatever I can by way of support. But that's the real frustration with this. It's the difference between walking the walk and talking the walk.
I agree, Vic. I think the problem is that we just haven't found the right recipe for getting that to happen and sort of getting to the tipping point where a neighborhood that is not organized looks around and say, well, what's wrong with us? Everybody else is doing it. We're at the point where there's a few Firewise communities, but nobody is sort of burning up the rubber to kind of get it done everywhere. So I'm looking to figure out how the council could be an ally in a really much more dramatic way. I'll just throw out a silly thing. I mean, before every council meeting, you come up and say, here are the 4 neighborhoods that are organized now, and we're hoping that by the next meeting, we got 3 more or something. I don't, just to get the people's attention around it.
Yeah, so these all sound like great ideas to me. I will tell you as a council member, if the council is going to push this, it's going to be down in the list because of all the things we have to do. But if you guys said, here are our ideas, and brought a list of ideas and said, council, consider these, then I'm sure they'd get considered. I mean, some of the things you just mentioned just now, that'd be great. I'd love it if we did that. I mean, we have a reading on, sort of indigenous people. I mean, maybe we could find a way to do the same thing for safety. I mean, that was sort of what the 5th Wednesday did, was it just kept a regular drumbeat because Vic's right. I mean, I've been involved in this stuff, you guys know, forever. And, we had the same problem with SERP back when it was SERP, that it really comes down to individuals. And, can you guys reach out and try to find people? I mean, there's all that stuff. I mean, there's a lot of things we can try, but it's a hard road. I mean, for sure.
Yeah,
But
go ahead.
yeah, no, please.
So
Yeah.
what I would add, I mean, Craig and I, we go back
Way back.
a long way, and we have seen many things. Now, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, over these decades, the most successful period we had in signing up SERP or EPIC people is when Gayleen Mann, who died many years ago of cancer, she was like Selena, but she was at the fire department solely focused on SERP, and it was almost her full-time job. And she was doing the recruiting and the going out and having events and pulling in people. And that was the time when we had the most individual people in the neighborhoods. It's a full-time job. So to expect that we can do this or that the town council can do it, I think it's not realistic. It's just so time consuming to get people motivated. And at the end, it's, the neighbor talks to the next neighbor and has a party. And it's time consuming. And when,
Okay, I just want to do a time check here. We're already 5 minutes after 9, and obviously this has struck a good chord, and it means that we need to really put it on the goals and work on it. Randy?
Yeah, I have one comment, actually 2 comments that I think could be helpful. I love the idea of having some regularity to safety in front of the town council. I think perhaps,
You need to speak in the mic.
okay,
not
I
look
think
at the-
well, this is
This is
one thing,
microphone.
getting these microphones fixed.
You got to point it right at your mouth.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Move the microphone where you face it.
Okay, so I think perhaps concentrating the meetings instead of spreading them evenly out over the year, concentrating them leading up to fire season, leading up to like the period now, May, June, because like we're making a push on the evacuation plan because of fire season, and then we'll probably want to make another push before school starts into August, beginning of September, when highest peak risk time is. So that, I guess that's one comment. And then another comment is I attended a 3-hour evacuation training at the county, at the DEM, and just found out about it sort of 2 days before from Rob. He and Dale weren't able to make it. It was extremely informative. I mean, I learned a ton. I took 4 or 5 pages of notes, which I've posted to our shared Google folder. I introduced myself to the Cal Fire Deputy Fire Chief Cox and San Mateo Branch Battalion Chief. And I asked if you knew any folks on the EPC, Rob or Dale, who are on the evacuation subcommittee. The only person he knew was Jeremy, former town manager Jeremy Dennis. And so I think it's very important that the committee members and subcommittee members who are working on things to make these connections and then share out the information. And so I asked all the presenters, including someone who presented on large animal evacuation. She came up to me afterwards, gave me her contact. I've got her presentation. Those are all posted now to our shared folder, as are my notes. And so both us as committee members and the staff need to move to a way of sharing this information and posting it so that it's enduring. If we have staff turnover, if we have committee turnover, that shared information and the shared connections and contacts are there for the continuity. Because I look at this safety and our work here is it's going to be just an ongoing process of progress and improvements, and at various times we'll make various pushes to really get some things done. So
Great. Thank you, Randy.
So two short comments. I know you're trying to get done. So one, I would say, write down your proposals. Like that's the best way to get this done. And the other is, do you have stuff that you would like me to share? Because as a liaison, I can put something at the end of the town council agenda, which is just report from the liaison. And I could put your report, I could just attach it and it will get read by all the council members. So if you have sort of a small packet that you would like me to include, I can get that included in the council packet as well.
Bud?
Since COVID, we have not been meeting in the meeting room over there in the main building. In that building, there are binders that tell us how to open up the EOC, procedures and so forth. But we don't know that. It's been 3 years since we've even been there. And most of, you're new. So there's a lot of stuff already there. We have had training in the past, opening up the EOC. So there's a lot of, we're going like this, up and down
Well, we
because,
just need new training.
Yeah.
No, I know.
You know, these are goals for the year, 6 months on the left. Now we got to figure out how to execute on all of these. Your point is well taken, Bud, and we talked about this. We need another training, who's going to be involved and just how that happens. Same thing about engaging the council. So the point of printing out these goals for ourselves is just to keep us focused on what we want to do. And I would hope that Dale will maybe create some subcommittees on each of these areas as appropriate. So we actually can say at the end of the year, we move the needle significantly towards success. Maybe not
Hopefully at the-
100%, but we're moving.
At the next meeting, hopefully we'll have that so we can,
Exactly.
as a committee, agree and how to move forward.
Perfect. Nick?
Do we need to make a motion on these goals that?
I'd love to, I mean, and I have no particular pride in ownership. If there's anything anybody wants to change, we can change it, but I'm happy with the way it is. And I'd be happy for the council to see what we think we're going to work on for the year.
So move.
That we approve this list for our goals for our committee for this year.
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None. So we have approved the goals and we can determine the best way to communicate that to the council so they have that information. So again, trying to get us out of here at some reasonable time. We have subcommittee reports. Ray's report is already in there. Rob has already talked about evacuation. Vic, do you have any
I
comments?
want to briefly, just to keep you informed, obviously with the limitations of staff in this time, I have not been pressing forward on the rankings that we did, the 13 items. It's part of the ongoing work to the extent town staff can work on it. Unless this committee wants me to do more, I'm taking a very gentle approach to this because I really feel they're so overwhelmed, and we're just gonna keep an eye on it, and I'll be in contact with Corey and others from time to time. And I think the town council will understand that our initial goal to try and get more of these done in the short term is just going to have to be realistic in terms of the availability of staff. So if any of you have any different feedback, just let me know. Okay, but that's
Great.
how I'm
Thank you, Vic.
proceeding for now.
Mary Ann or Andy on outreach? Anything you want to report?
No, we're just focusing on the Saturday.
Great. Okay.
The one thing I was thinking, particularly when it comes to communication, we are now putting stuff out with all these acronyms, and even I don't know them. If we just might, whenever we put something out, maybe have a little footnote, what does AAR or mean, and da da da. And even, you know, WPV ready, not everybody knows that, but we are very heavy on acronyms.
Yeah, excellent. And everybody's got a business where the same acronym means something totally different, drive you nuts. I understand.
Can I add something to that? Thanks for mentioning that, Marianne. Part of the editing our one pagers is dealing with the acronyms, because it is very difficult for residents to keep up with everything that's going on. And then I hate to backtrack, but I do want to mention back when you guys were talking about Gaylin, that was her full-time job. And in addition to that, she was a resident. So just keep in mind that, you know, the residents now, you know, they're a lot different than they were when Gaylin and myself were in the office together. And that I see this being such a huge joint effort between all of the agencies and entities that have interest in this, to figure out a way to engage, to find those, you know, boots on the ground people.
A hard job, yeah.
Thank you. Rob, do you have anything on the safety element? Great. So a quorum check for July 6th, who is going to be available? Anybody not available? Okay. We'll hope you can do that. And if you can't, we'll figure out a solution.
I'll likely be out here.
Pardon?
I'll likely be out traveling.
Okay. But it looks like we'll manage to get 6 people together. Great. So other than June 24, as it's listed in this item, we'll see you all then. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Sorry to
We
drag
have to have
this
a
on.
motion. We have to have a motion to
I accept that motion and all in favor? Aye. Aye.